So you're a Root alumna. You used to write our newsletter for a time, and I thought we'd start there and just talk about your involvement with us in the past.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I started Time and Temp, the Root newsletter with Matt Carney. I left the Voice, the Tulsa Voice. I was the editor there, and I left in the summer of 2018. And then think I think the first Time and Temp newsletter came out that September. So yeah, it was it was fun to be able to continue to write about um, arts and culture in Tulsa.
Yeah,
So, and Alicia's doing an amazing job with it, and your interviews are great, and it's been awesome to see it flourish. I quit doing it. I found out I was pregnant last July, and I told Matt I wanted to work on focus on some creative work, and so I think last September was my last one. So I did it for a full
yeah.
year.
Well, you helped get it off the ground, and I was talking to Alicia today, and she's been doing it almost exactly a year now. So
Yeah.
yeah, she does a great job with those too. And
Yeah, she did.
both when you were running it and when Alicia was running it before I came on, that would kind of be my ritual, like to see one of those in the inbox, to get up and kind of see what's happening in Tulsa because
Yeah. Well, and especially since The Voice closed, I mean, I'm just so glad that there is a dedicated space for, arts and culture writing
yeah.
here in Tulsa. We need that as much of it as we can get, I think.
Yeah, and at that point, were you already a Tulsa Artist Fellow when you were working with Matt?
Um, I hadn't started. I started my fellowship in January 2019, and so yeah, I was not a fellow yet. So
Okay, so you were on the second year of that now, and how's that going?
it's going good. Yeah, it's going really good. It's been interesting, with the pandemic, and I had a baby right at the very beginning of the pandemic. Lyle, he was born March 13th. Um, and so, Tulsa shut down on the 17th, I think, like officially, which was the day we left the hospital. So I took a little bit of like a leave, to get used to being a mother of a newborn, as used to it as you can get. And then I started working again in June of, 3 months after he was born. And so I mean, it's going good. I'm writing. It's just been interesting. We don't have childcare. And my husband, works full time. So,
Yeah.
writing with a baby has been a challenge.
That was actually my next question. How have you noticed that your practice has changed, or has the subject matter of your writing changed? How have you adapted to being a new mother with your practice?
Um, I would say like, and I think this has always been really important for me in my writing practice, like no matter what is happening in my life, is to be gracious with myself about, what I'm able to do and get done and when. And, for me, like writing it doesn't always look like, I'm sitting at my desk and I'm writing. There's lots of other things that go into it. I think about writing all the time. I take notes, I take notes kind of throughout the day on my phone. I've started relying heavily on
Yeah.
phone notes, which is like not something that I ever did before, but um, I've been reading a lot more this pandemic, and it's like it's inseparable for me, like having a baby and the pandemic. They happened at the same time for me, and so I can't, so I'm like, I don't know if I am I reading more because I have a newborn, or am I reading more because it's hard to write when, the concerns of your writing kind of diminish in some ways in the face of like a pandemic and a civil uprising and
Yeah.
the Black Lives Matter movement, you know, and all that stuff. So
And I hadn't considered before until now, but it seems like a pandemic would be just a really scary place to raise a child. But in a way, if you're just staying at home, you're getting your groceries online, it's kind of just, you can have your insulated little bubble there where you're able to work and take care
it's
of
super
Lila.
insulated.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's also like I feel so insulated and so kind of isolated too from the rest of the world that I'm like, what's it like out there? You know?
Yeah.
So I've been going a little stir crazy,
Yeah.
but I've been getting outside a lot. And yeah, I think like one thing that's been interesting is, you know, and again, is it the baby or is it the pandemic? I don't know. But with everything really like slowing down and becoming very focused just here in the house, and getting kind of quiet, everything else getting kind of quiet, like I've just had like flooding of memories and
Mhm.
you know, lots of like introspection and thoughts and stuff that I think is really good for writing and is going to pay off. um
Yeah.
you know.
Well, a lot of being a journalist is being out in the field, talking with people, visiting new places, trying to capture the life of a city or a movement or something like that. And how has that been, working from home during the pandemic? And
So I have just been focusing on creative work. I
okay,
have not done any, at the last like journalistic piece I did was for Oklahoma Today, and it was for their 25th anniversary, like commemoration issue of the Oklahoma City bombing. And so that came out at the beginning of this year. I think it was their March, April issue. And I wrote a piece about the journalists who covered the bombing, like the day of and then forward. But you know, I wrote that, I mean, I think I turned that in December,
yeah,
you know, so I haven't really done much. I've just focused on creative work during this time. So it's very, you know,
yeah.
like quiet here. I don't know.
I want to circle back to your Oklahoma Today piece, but are you able to talk about the creative work you've been doing, or are you at liberty to discuss those things yet? Yeah, I'm just curious what
Yeah.
you've been working on.
Um, no, it's not under contract, if that's what you mean. Um, I have been working on a long form. It's like it's an essay that I think will be book length, like a small book. Um, but I'm viewing it as an essay, kind of a combination of really like lyric nonfiction and personal essay. And it's about, I started writing it last fall, while I was pregnant. It is about an assault that happened in my family and being pregnant and sort of ideas of like the body and ownership and claiming it. And I also talk about like visual art. It kind of touches on a lot of things. I need to narrow it down, but it's a work in progress very much. And I've just continued writing that. I wrote it through my pregnancy, and then I've continued working on that since Lyle's been born. So yeah, that's.
Have you noticed the pandemic, Black Lives Matter, an election year? Have you noticed these things sort of trickling their way down into your work and shifting your perspective on these issues? Because it seems like the world was so different just before this summer.
Yeah, and I think some of the concerns of the moment were in my work already. There's, you know, I'm not practiced in like talking about this at all, but I would say definitely the yeah, there's a lot that relates to what's happening now in that piece. And because I've kind of been writing it almost like a journal, and so it's like contemporary with like what's happening. Um,
Mm.
but yes, I have definitely seen those things are in there, and there's a lot of like I've realized that there's a lot of work that I need to do, um, understanding more about like my family history and where we come from, what we did, what we didn't do, things like that. You know.
Yeah, yeah. And now to talk about your piece for Oklahoma Today, The Witness Bearers, I revisited that in preparation for our interview, and it's a great piece, but it's about the trauma that the journalists covering the bombing 25 years ago went through. And the first thing that came to mind is now in 2020, we've probably been the first people in human history to experience like a true global trauma, something that's affected every country, every corner of the earth. And people are covering that in so many different ways. But a part of your piece is about preparing for trauma and how you can, as a journalist, sort of shield yourself against that. Is there anything you could say about that?
I should have revisited that piece. I think one thing that a lot of those journalists said is like there is no way to fully prepare, but I think like I mean, I feel like one thing I see more and more, especially with journalists who are active on Instagram and photojournalists, especially, who are out in the middle of like these like pro Portland protests, witnessing
Yeah.
police brutality. I think they've been out there for like 80 days now, you know, um, or like the, Black Lives Matter protests that happened in Minneapolis. And I think what we're like, it's good to keep in mind that journalists are human, and it's impossible to not have an emotional reaction to like witnessing horrible things and then having the added responsibility of um, sharing as best you can
Yeah.
what the version of events was
Trying to be
and
truthful in the face of
trying
that.
to be truthful, yeah, but I think like it's really important that people who consume media and read journalism and follow photojournalists and stuff understand that like it's this idea of like non-bias is not really totally possible, and
Yeah.
like that a journalist isn't just like a shell that can go out and not experience trauma right alongside the other people who they're covering, um, and that's going to affect you in your reporting.
Yeah, and there's sort of this buffer between us and the firsthand account, or as you say in the piece, the witnessing of something. They're able to go on the front lines and see something for themselves, and then we can sit on our couch or lay in our bed and scroll through our phone reading those things. So, and
Yeah,
I like that your piece is, you as a journalist are talking about the work of journalists, and I thought that was a pretty clever way to approach that incident.
thanks. That was really meaningful for me to get to write. I grew up in Oklahoma City, and I was 8 at the time of the bombing. um, I was at home because I was homeschooled. We lived really close. We lived less than 2 miles away. Like that was a big, um, it's been a big influence in my life and a big like part of my, just that's like a thing that sticks with you, from childhood. And I remember watching the news and listening to the news reports on the radio, and like so to hear from the journalists who were there, was just really meaningful to get to do that, and they were really kind to share those memories with me because some of them have really painful memories of that.
Yeah. And now to kind of tie all these things together that we've been talking about, you were a child when that happened. I was born the year that happened, like right several months after. And now your child has been born into 2020 with the pandemic and all the other things we mentioned. So, I mean, looking back in hindsight, it's going to be, I imagine, 25 years from now, you'll be able to reflect upon these things in an entirely different way. And I'm sure that'll be
Yeah,
really meaningful.
yeah. And I think like one thing I've been thinking a lot about this pandemic time is like how important imagination is and how important it is that we, I mean, I think our imaginations are really powerful, and we, I think our words obviously are powerful. They're creative force. And I'm hopeful that people are harnessing their imaginations to like, let's imagine us into a future we want to be in 25 years, that we want our children to be in, and our, descendants, and ourselves. And yeah, it's scary, but I don't know. I hope, I have hope.
Well, I think maybe we're more conscious of those things now than people were several generations ago, looking at where we've ended up. But
I will make no comment about the baby boomer.
I was pushing you to that edge.
I got lots to say.
And let's talk about 7 Minutes in Heaven. And I'm really curious how that came about, because one day it just popped up on Instagram, but I'm sure a lot of work went into that.
You mean just like the reading series
Yeah,
as a whole?
yeah.
Yeah. So I moved to Tulsa at the end of 2015, and it was before I got hired on at the Tulsa Voice and before the fellowship, and I didn't know anybody. I mean, I was from Oklahoma City, and so I really wanted to do something like for the lit scene here, and just, I mean, selfishly, so I could like meet other writers. And my friend who had lived in Austin had started a reading series called 7 Minutes in Heaven. And then she did it like once or twice, and then she didn't keep it up. And so she had suggested to me to steal her idea. And so I did. And I've hosted it every year since 2016. And last year was the first year I did it like, I think 3 or 4 times in a year. And before that, it had just been once a year. But with the fellowship, I had more time. And so the premise is that writers share works of prose, fiction or nonfiction or hybrid or whatever. I'm not real, fussy about that. But that the piece is 7 minutes or less. And usually there's like 4 readers in a reading, and there's a wild card that we pick from the audience. People put their name in my cowboy hat, and it's really fun, and it's good for like short attention spans. And we usually do it at a bar or a brewery, although that is not the case anymore. So we're going to have a virtual reading that should be out on video, I don't know, in a couple weeks.
Can you talk about these virtual readers and also maybe what it was like putting together your first virtual event?
Yeah. So 2 of the readers are Tulsa Artist Fellows. One is Ahimsa Timoteo Bodron, and he's from the Bronx. And I don't have all of the bios in front of me, but he does a bunch of different stuff, and he's edited some journals. And I know that I believe he started a journal about contemporary like movement and dance. Carl Jones is the other fellow, and he has been writing a lot about Bruce Goff lately, the Oklahoma architect who did the Spotlight Theater here in Tulsa and some other famous things around the state. The Bavinger House in Norman, which like I think got torn down.
Yeah.
very Oklahoma thing
Goff,
to
it was Goff who co-designed uh, Boston, what's the name? Boston Avenue Methodist.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he
Yes.
co-designed that with his high school teacher.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is probably the best known. And Carl also like makes these really awesome hand puppets with paper sacks, and he hosts like workshops and stuff. Hang on just a second. His baby monitor is on and he's screaming. And then the other two readers, one is Portland Houghton Harjo, and she is Muskogee Creek and Seminole, I believe, and she's here. She's from Tulsa. And the other one is Alexandra Munoz, and she's a local writer and teaches at a local language academy. She's also in a grad program right now. So yeah, I'm really excited to have all of them.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what they read because they were all filmed by a videographer. It was all socially distant. I wasn't even there. So it's going to be a surprise for me too.
So it'll still have that same effect of you just stepping in a room with these people and
Yeah, I hope so. And we filmed it with everybody in a beautiful outdoor space, kind of like right in front of plants. So that's been another really good thing, I think, about the pandemic, is that a lot of people have gotten like maybe outside more than they normally were in our busier lives. So I wanted to have it outside.
And so when can people expect that to premiere? Not exactly.
We'll say the first week of September.
Okay. Good.
And if it's not, sorry.
Well, is there anything else you want to talk about with your work or your life right now and what's been going on with you?
Let's see what we covered. I went to Fulton Street Books a couple weeks ago. That place is awesome. Have you been?
No, but I had Onika on At a Distance, like right before they opened, and we talked about the shop and some of the programs they have. It looks great. It looks great. I really don't get out in Tulsa much yet. Still.
Yeah, I don't either. But I did go to pick up. I got the Toni Morrison, The Source of Self-Regard, which is her like speeches and essays and stuff. But yeah, Onika had a baby in April, so we commiserated over that.
Yeah. And also my boss, your former boss with Root, Matt Carney, just had twins. So
yeah,
I was thinking we need to have a baby Zoom call. We need to have Lyle, Onika's kid, and kids all on a call. And
yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know. I feel very fortunate right now to have the fellowship and to be able to write. And I feel like we're living through a pretty amazing time. And I hope it, I hope the progress that needs to be made, gets made. And I think that artists play a vital role in that. And, and here in Tulsa, especially.
Certainly. And the last thing I ask everybody who comes on the series is, what is one thing that you really miss from pre-pandemic times that if you could do right now, you would go do?
What would I go do? God, I would have a party. I would have a party and I would pack my house out. Like I miss that. Will and I opened a little art gallery in our house last fall called Half Bath, and it's a little art gallery in our bathroom that's in our kitchen. And we had a show with Jessica Harvey, who's a Tulsa Artist Fellow, and we had like an opening, and she gave an artist talk, and there were like 60 people in our house, and we had wine and pretzels, and and oh my God, and now I think like people were like eating pretzels out of the same bowl. It's
Yeah.
disgusting. But yeah, I'd have a party, I'd have everybody over. I
One of
would
the
hug
last
all of them.
one of the last things I did in person, where I was gathered with people, was your baby shower, and there was that.
That was too. It was a party.
Yeah, that was a true party. With charcuterie spread, everybody just grabbing off of it, and
It's crazy. I know. And Will and I have talked about that a couple of times. Like we've looked back at pictures and been like, that seems insane now,
yeah,
I mean, so no COVID super spreaders over here.
yeah. I wonder when we'll truly be able to get back to that. Hopefully soon.
I know. I hope so. It also seems crazy that like, and this is also just part of having a baby too, but I was like, the other day I was thinking like, I used to go like hang out at bars. Like what a what a strange concept.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks for talking with me.
Yeah.
It's good to catch up and hear about all the wonderful things you're working on. I look forward to the new 7 Minutes in Heaven. And,
Thanks, Mason. It's good
yeah,
to see you.
good to see you too.
Okay.
Go check on
Okay.
that screaming baby.
I will. Can you hear him?
Just barely.
Okay. All right. See you
On the
later.
record, Will, her husband, is with the baby right now.
He is.
Yeah.
Yes, he is. He works full time downstairs, and I work full time upstairs.
You're on the second floor.
I am in the yeah. Sometimes I feel like Rapunzel. I like look outside and I'm
All right. Have a good
like,
one.
okay, bye, Mason.
Bye.